Liberty, with you for every step on the road to financial freedom. Recent statistics released by the Association for Savings and Investment in South Africa show an alarming increase of death claims between April 2020 and the end of March 2021, with figures exceeding the 1 million mark. Now, this is largely due to the direct and indirect consequences of COVID-19. Now, the stark reality is forcing us to think carefully about the kind of cover that we have and what will happen to our loved ones if we don't plan for the worst-case scenario. Joining me from Cape Town now is Hennie de Villiers, Deputy Chair of ASISA, to unpack some of those numbers. Hennie, thank you so much for joining us on FinSmart. Can you please unpack those numbers for us during the period that we mentioned at the beginning of the show?
As you know, that was the height of the first and the second waves of the pandemic. So the insurance industry paid out more than 1 million death claims in that period. That's across the categories of a funeral policy, an underwritten life policy, members of group schemes, as well as credit life. That's 300,000 more than the previous year. So it's been a significant increase. And it's an amount of 47 billion rand that was paid out, as opposed to just under 30 billion in the previous year.
Well, Hennie, the numbers that you're talking about are massive. They're huge numbers. Is our insurance industry equipped to handle those numbers?
Thankfully, I think this period has also shown and demonstrated the resilience of the industry. The way one can look at that is that our regulator requires a certain level of capital that each insurer has to hold. Because as you know, life insurance is a long-term business. So you really need to make sure that the insurer can pay claims in 10, 15, 20 years' time. For that reason, they require a certain level of excess assets that insurers have to hold over their liabilities. They call it the solvency capital requirement. And the industry as a whole, at the end of the first half of this year, held double that amount. So the industry is very well capitalized, and despite the large amounts of claims that had to be paid out, which is really a 1 in 100-year event that we've seen here, still the industry is extremely well capitalized and therefore very resilient. Customers can really sleep easy on that.
Well, do you believe that this has been a watershed period in terms of the way that we now look at insurance?
Definitely so. Initially, when we had the strict lockdowns last year, we did see there that customers' abilities to keep on paying their premiums, that took a real knock, because people lost their jobs or were laid off just temporarily and so forth. But since then, we've really seen a significant bounce back in terms of the sales of insurance policies and also the persistency. So we definitely see an improvement in persistency, so that people seem to have really increased the importance of life insurance in their own list of priorities, and therefore are taking every effort to keep their policies intact.
Well, clearly there are dire repercussions if we don't invest in insurance, isn't it?
Unfortunately so. I think the thing one has to recognize also in terms of the million claims that's been paid is it's not just a statistic. Very sadly, there is a family behind it who lost a loved one, and also then have to cater or economically without that loved one. So if you do not have life cover in place, the economic impact on your family over and above just the sadness of losing a loved one is really material. So I would really emphasize that if at all possible, one should get life cover and also cover against just protecting your income. Because if it happens to you, even if you don't have dependents, but you cannot work, it can have a significant financial impact.
Hennie de Villiers, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us here on FinSmart. Well, there you have it. It's important not to lose sight of the human face behind the statistics, but it's also a big wake-up call for those of us who maybe have not invested in adequate life cover to ensure the financial well-being of the loved ones that one day we'll leave behind. It's not just your financial freedom, it's your liberty. Let's make it count. Liberty, in it with you.